It's always so funny when people who are like anti-socialism, when they talk about socialism being bad, they literally just describe capitalism. It's like, oh, you know, socialism is bad because you're giving money to the people who just don't deserve it. You're taking it away from the working class and giving it to the wealthy rich people. It's like, that's not socialism. It always pisses me off when people are like saying what good the right has done for society and they literally only describe things that the left has been pushing for. It's like, oh, because of the right we have equality and like we're looking at a person's qualifications instead of their race and their assigned gender at birth. We are finally moving away from pushing certain groups and elevating that. Like the right has been doing so many good things and it's like, nope. You're describing DEI. You're describing woke leftist agendas. But the right is good because, like, they were anti-smoking. They're also anti-vaccines. They're also funding a lot of, like, fake research in order to push the idea that, like, I don't know, autism can be cured. The right also wasn't even anti-smoking. They were the ones pushing that smoking makes you into a cool man. Oh yeah, but it started that way. It's like, yeah, but you know, it doesn't matter how something starts. It matters what they're actually doing. Because like if you say, oh, you know, like the right is so good because like we can finally do all these things because of the right, and it's like you look at what their actions are and you see that no, these people are actually like hindering all progress and they're going against it. You know, they don't want to move away from this like privileged society with like the class disparity. People come along and they're like, oh, you know what? I consider myself a conservative. I'm actually, you know, like I don't hate anyone, but like I still consider myself a conservative. And then you look at conservative values, especially like in the past couple of decades, and you see those are literally just fascist tropes. Our Christian party in Germany is literally aligning with the far right AfD. They're literally like, well, you know, like you're not doing what we want you to do, so we are just going to, we have no choice other than align ourselves with the far right. Like they're literally using like fascist dog whistles. All the right cares about is power and how they can line their pockets with more money. Yeah, exactly. And then you tell these things to people and they're like, no, this is just leftist agenda woke things. You're actually not telling the truth. You're just one of these woke people. You want to elevate certain marginalized groups and hate on the privileged white man and want to suppress them. You're anti-white, anti-man. The reason why we need DEI is because otherwise privileged groups are gatekeeping certain jobs. Every time you have a woman as like a CEO, it's like, oh, that's a DEI hire. Oh, it's a DEI hire. It's never about qualifications because they always think that women or like people of color never deserve any jobs and they take it away from the qualified white man. People like Asmongold come along and they're like, oh, why would I ever vote a group that oppresses people like me and doesn't put everyone on the same playing field? Why would I vote for parties that put me at a disadvantage? It's like, you're a privileged cis white straight man who's also rich. You're literally sitting on your ass, reacting to YouTube videos all day, and you get paid millions, and you talk about like, oh, I can't find a job anymore because nobody wants to hire white straight males anymore. Everybody wants to push for DEI, woke agenda. We literally need these programs to give everyone the same chance, because if you don't have these programs, like you see what happens, you know, women getting replaced by men who are also white and who also happen to be rich. You need these programs in order to actually have like equality, like this mindset that like, oh, we should just hire people based on qualifications. There's no need for DEI. Yeah, there is, because otherwise you literally only get white rich cis men in positions of power. That's why you have these programs. That's why you have like in school programs like, oh, we want to push girls and get them interested in scientific like fields, you know, because if you go to university or whatnot and you want to study something like, let's say, electrical engineering, you're going to have like 95% just like men. So a lot of women, a lot of, you know, marginalized groups don't want to go into these areas because these people are like gatekeeping these jobs. And like, even if you do finish studying and you become like an engineer and whatnot, and you're like really qualified, people are still going to like question whether or not you're actually good enough because you're not a man. And then people come along and it's like, oh, misogyny is actually no longer real, you know? We don't need DEI anymore. DEI has never done anything good. It's so annoying. And then privileged people come along and they act like they are the ones being oppressed. You don't even have to think critically. Just use your brain cell for once in your life and try to imagine what life looks like through the eyes of like marginalized and oppressed groups. My bestie was doing electrical engineering, and when she was doing her work for it, the cishet male peers were openly talking about how nice it would be to have sex with her in areas like sports, etc. It's like, why do we need separated sports? Because men are so like fragile and they don't want to play with women and lose against women. You see that in games, like every time you have like someone with a femme voice talking, insecure little man children are throwing a tantrum and they're like, oh, you should go back into the kitchen. And then people are wondering, you know, women are so good and are on the same level as men. Why are there not enough women in esports? It's because every time there's a woman, men throw a fucking tantrum. It's gross. Fun fact about the Olympic Games, there weren't separated categories until women started winning some categories. Oh yeah, the reason why men's football is so much bigger than women's football is because like it used to be the other way. Because like during World War, the women were able to play, and actually all the women were filling stadiums and whatnot. And the thing is like, then suddenly they just like started gatekeeping the soccer fields so that the women couldn't like play on them. And then after like, I don't know, 50 years of that, obviously when you can't have large stadiums where you can hold like a lot of people, you know, this just changes. Wasn't it the same with like fighter pilots? You know, women being better jet pilots because on average they were smaller, and then them like gatekeeping stuff so you couldn't be a pilot as a woman. The world record for most expensive signing in women's football was broken recently, being a £1 million transfer fee. The men's record is 220 million. Yeah, but like, you know why that is? Because men hated that women attracted bigger crowds. They always think that like women's sports is worth less than men's sports because men are superior to women. They always have this idea. It's like, oh, you know, like, oh, this one woman scored 3 goals like back to back from like 100 feet away, but like, you know, I could do that. I'm not even a professional, but it's women's sports, so I as a man am inherently better as the top professional women. All current jobs that are viewed as women's job used to be exclusively male, including cheerleading. Men literally thought it was impossible for women to be that physical in gymnastics. And then when women were allowed to do that, they were better than men. Men quit because they want to do nothing to do with women. Yeah, they're always so fragile. You want to say women's sport isn't as good or fast-paced, or watch women's field hockey. It's competitive sport. And it's just this idea of society of like, oh, you know, like a man could do it better. With like tennis, it's like, oh, this one tennis player beat 2 women because he's so much better. Oh, actually, there's one woman who beat a man. The woman was like in her 20s and the man was like already retired, so it wasn't even a fair match. And it was like smoking in the middle, so it actually doesn't count that he lost. It's just patriarchal. And then you say these things and it's like, nope, actually feminists, they hate men. Actually, you're only saying these things because you hate men and you want to suppress men. You're actually, you know, sexist against men. Like, we don't have true equality. Holy shit. We're not doing this today. We're not doing voice chat today. How can I be the best if everyone is equal? Yeah. It's like they're just so upset. Anytime someone other than a cis white straight man gets like a job or like this, like an achievement, or like gets like representation in a video game, they're always so offended. It's always like, oh, this is a DEI hire. Oh, every white straight man would be better for this position by default. On social media, I see a lot of compilations of mistakes in women's football, and every single time men conclude that's just the standard of football, despite the same mistakes happening in men's all the time. Yeah, it's just confirmation bias too. And it's also like every time a woman is like celebrating like graduating from like a technical field, men are always in the comments and they're like, well, you're too attractive to study, like you should just be a wife. Why don't you just marry a man and let men do men's jobs? Why are you forcing yourself into men's positions? You should just do OnlyFans. And then anytime a woman does like OnlyFans and spicy work, she's a sellout and she's exploiting lonely men. You can never win. You know, as a marginalized group, as a woman, as someone who's like part of the oppressed group in society, you can never win. It doesn't matter what you do. You're literally always losing. It's the same with like, oh, you know, I'm a trans woman. I'm literally just a woman. And then people come along and they're like, you're not facing period cramps and the real struggle of women. You're just a feminine male. But on the other hand, if you have someone who is like, you know, oh, I'm just a femboy. You know, I like to dress in stereotypical feminine ways. It's like, oh, you're making fun of women. You're cosplaying womanhood. You're being a stereotype. You should only wear boys' clothing. How dare you? Like, you can never win. And I think social media makes this like so much worse. It doesn't matter what you do. You're always just upsetting people. But I don't mind upsetting bigots because they're people. Like, I'm really open. I'm vocal about this one specific thing, that everyone in the center towards the right is not welcome in my community. Like, if you're conservative, your conservative values means to me that you hold on to like, oh, marriage is just between a man and a woman. The only true religion is Christianity. The only valid family is between a man and a woman and their children. These are your conservative values. Like, why should I respect that? And if you look at like conservative parties, if you look at like liberals, like you see that they're drifting more and more into the right, and they're not even hiding it anymore. They're openly admitting that they can only work with fascist parties. Like, I can't respect that. I'm not going to hear you out on it. Oh, VTubers shouldn't be political, you know? You're just here to entertain us. Like, no, I'm going to make my stance clear. And if it offends you, that means you're not my target audience and you should get the fuck out because you're not safe to be around.